For a long time now, there have been these rumors of some global conspiracy surrounding the truth. We had the US government try to put together a Ministry of Truth under Biden before they backed down under monumental backlash. We saw the most controversial American election in recent history, with certain stories being banned from the internet for being misinformation, despite being proven categorically true 2 years later. We've now seen some leaked information confirming the fears surrounding Twitter and Facebook and their censorship over recent years, and there have been accusations that this grift is all being held up by these tech companies working against their customers' interests, and actually against their own interests as well, instead focusing on simply what they're told to do by politicians drunk with power. Now, during the presidential election, there was a story going around talking about Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, and a laptop, leaked information, fraud, drugs, and a whole load of other things. Now, I'm not really able to talk much about this story itself, and many other people have, so there's no real need for me to, especially without getting my channel deleted and banned. But what I can talk about is the revelation that we got a few months ago that Facebook censored and removed news pieces talking about this story after being directed to by the FBI. Now, we knew what was happening at the time because we could see it in front of our eyes. No mention of this story was allowed on social media at all, as it was claimed to be Russian misinformation designed to manipulate the result of the election, but we didn't know where the directive came from. We didn't know if every social media company had formed some sort of a cartel and decided to hide this story together, or if they had all acted independently, or if this was a direction from some kind of government agency. A few months ago, though, Mark Zuckerberg himself went on the Joe Rogan podcast for a few hours, and he spoke very candidly about this event and said in plain English that Facebook was instructed to remove stories like this by the FBI because it was false and Russian misinformation. The decision to call it that was rather odd, as the FBI had all the same evidence surrounding this story that they still have today, and they now admit that it's actually an entirely true and authentic story, and the Russian state had nothing to do with it at all. Kevin McCarthy, a Republican politician, has tweeted about this, saying the FBI colluded with big tech to silence news stories weeks before the 2020 election in an attempt to control your access to information. Democrats in Congress have been intentionally ignoring the fact when Republicans are back in charge, we will hold all of them accountable. But the problem is, this man isn't in charge, and so no one is being held accountable. Mark Zuckerberg himself exposed this story on a podcast, and yet nothing has been done about it, and the story came out in August over 3 months ago now. Yet still, if you talk about this, you're called a conspiracy nut, but of course the story doesn't end here. A few weeks ago, we started to get information about an investigation into the Department of Homeland Security after loads of leaked documents were exposed, showing the department partaking in a whole load of needless censorship. Homeland Security worked directly with Facebook to censor pieces of information that they didn't want going around, something that Mark Zuckerberg actually didn't tell us on that podcast, but we do know this happened thanks to these leaks. To make matters worse though, this was all orchestrated under the Disinformation Governance Board, which was cancelled because of how insanely dystopic it all seemed. But these leaks prove that even though the board was shut down, Homeland Security decided to continue with the plans and basically just run it anyway without the name. They worked specifically with Facebook to create a backdoor which would allow them to censor whatever they wanted on Facebook themselves without even having to ask or alert Facebook when it happened. They literally got themselves coded into Facebook itself to have that control over what information is allowed and what isn't. These leaks revealed that they focused on things like the COVID-19 pandemic and the vaccines. They focused on America's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, which led to 13 dead American servicemen and women, and the nature of American support for Ukraine. Now, whether or not you hold the mainstream view on any of those topics, to suggest that it should be illegal or impossible to say anything contrary to what the government wants is utterly insane and dangerous to democracy. But of course, it goes even further than this, because when Elon Musk took over Twitter, we found out about a similar program in place with that tech company, where again, the Department of Homeland Security worked with Twitter executives to censor information they didn't want to go around. Vijaya Gadde was one of the first people Elon fired from Twitter, and as it turns out, that was for a very good reason, as she was the driving force behind this cooperation with Homeland Security and actually drafted a report for the company to expand Homeland Security's role in censoring people on Twitter. She worked directly with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, a subsection of Homeland Security, and ensured that Twitter processed reports and provided timely responses to include the removal of reported misinformation from the platform. If you take absolutely nothing else away from these leaks, just think for a moment about the fact that they were even censoring dissenting views regarding the American withdrawal from Afghanistan. This is how deep this goes and the extent to which this policy is designed not for the good of the country, not for the good of the military or for the people in it, but for the good of the politicians in power and their re-election prospects. And this is only public today because The Intercept managed to get a hold of secret documents and leak them.
It's no secret that the market has been embroiled in turmoil throughout 2022, with inflation, rate hikes, crypto collapses, and mass layoffs across the entire world, meaning asset prices have been getting hammered. That's why you watch Stoic Finance, but that's also why you need to check out the Tendies app on iOS and desktop today. The Tendies app is the first serious attempt to integrate trading tools with a social media platform. I personally love the filtered order flow. You can see whale purchases, a ranked chart of bid and ask spreads, and overall flow sentiment for free. I've been writing a video about Meta recently, and well, you can see the options flow data in real time right here. Other companies are charging $40 to $350 per month for the same type of data that Tendies is giving away for free. With Broker Connect, you can integrate your portfolio so you can monitor your performance and do the necessary research to be profitable in this environment. All the due diligence is in one place, and you have access to a constantly refreshing feed of information relevant to your portfolio and the stocks in it. So filter out the noise and use Tendies. I love it. Make sure you click the link in the description and take advantage of this market chaos.
At the exact same time as this is all happening, as the legacy media is instructing us to be outraged by the changes to Twitter and what Elon is doing, Sam Bankman-Fried and the entire team from the FTX fraud and theft of billions of dollars are walking free and are actually boasting about what they did, and people are asking why. Why are they free? Why are they allowed to steal from us? Well, the answer seems quite simple. They're on side with those in power. There's a New York Times speaking event happening literally today, which is bringing on many of the rich and powerful from around the world. And it turns out that Sam Bankman-Fried has been invited to speak there as well, along with Mark Zuckerberg, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, and the Ukrainian President Zelensky. We all know that SBF should be in jail. We all know that he's committed the biggest fraud in over a decade. And yet not only does he walk free, but he's invited to speak about his experiences and tell us how he thinks the world should be. And the New York Times is also trying its hardest to keep public opinion of Sam Bankman-Fried positive for some incredibly obscure reason. His profile on New York Times still to this day does not have a single mention of his crimes or the fraud that he's committed, and the New York Times keeps publishing puff pieces of him trying to change the narrative with things like Sam Bankman-Fried is neither a visionary nor a criminal mastermind. He's a human who made the same poor choice that generations of money managers have made before him. Well, I hate to break it to the New York Times, but he didn't make a mistake. He repeatedly committed crime after crime until it all blew up and he was finally exposed. What's really incredible, though, is that Sam Bankman-Fried appears to have accidentally exposed part of this cabal, and in particular, the scam that is ESG, or environmental, societal, and governance when investing. Now, the idea behind this is that investors should support good moral companies and those which support the environment, but in reality, it's all a big scam, and SBF was at the heart of it this whole time. He came out with this rambling and pretty incoherent tweet thread a couple of weeks ago, and in it he mentioned how he abused woke culture and made wild promises about carbon neutrality because it was what the industry wanted and because it got him more investment. But he also recognized that it's all nonsense and that what actually matters is what happens in the company itself, not what the company says is going to happen on Twitter. ESG investing is a front used by these entities to ensure certain companies get more support than others. Multi-billion-dollar oil companies are called environmentally friendly. Twitter, with its censorship of free speech, was considered to be a strength for society, and FTX was considered to be well governed. These are companies doing the elite's bidding, and this grading system is designed to ensure compliance amongst the financial institutions of the world. Or maybe it's just a coincidence that Larry Fink, the CEO and founder of BlackRock, the largest hedge fund in the world, the inventor of this ESG system, is also speaking at the exact same event today with Sam Bankman-Fried. Now, why SBF still has so much support from the elite, why the authorities refuse to arrest him or hold him accountable for his crimes, is something none of us can really answer yet. We know for a fact that he was a massive lobbying force for the regulation of crypto, trying to move it in his idea of the right direction. We know that he has contributed to destabilizing the crypto market, and he's donated millions of stolen dollars to the Democrats for their elections. But we don't know why he isn't in trouble for any of his crimes. Now, many people claim, despite all the evidence, that no, big tech and these other monopolistic companies don't have any aim or desire to oppress people for their own selfish gain. But in this realm, over the last 2 days, we've got more proof decidedly showing us that these companies will do anything to cement their power and their wealth. And this time, it's Apple, and it's related to the protests that are consuming China. You see, these protests in China are against the communist government and its draconian COVID restrictions that are literally killing people every day. People are massing and standing up to this authoritarian state, and as you might expect, they're using technology to communicate with each other. In the past, we've seen WhatsApp and Telegram being used to organize protests all over the world, but in this case, Apple's airdrop function is being used to spread information around China. Now, Apple has done the CCP's bidding, and they've banned and disabled this function on iPhones in China so that protesters can't use it to communicate with each other. Why are Apple doing this? Well, they have to do the CCP's bidding if they want access to China's cheap labor, and they really don't care what happens to the people on the ground, including their own employees, as evidenced by their silence over the last week as their factory workers have been attacked by Communist Party goons outside their factory after Apple refused them to pay their bonuses that they had promised as hazard pay for working during lockdowns. This move by big tech companies and other entities at the top of the food chain to stamp out ordinary people is being seen all over the world, and yet many people will still scream conspiracy theory whenever this topic is brought up, but it's real and the evidence is overwhelming. Unfortunately, with these sorts of topics, it's commonplace for YouTube and these other companies to try and repress this information, and I have to tread very carefully with what I say. As a result, I'm effectively gagged here on YouTube, but we have a new platform called Stoic Financial Freedom that allows me to speak the truth without any fear of reprisals, and we cover all of this stuff but in so much more detail. There are hours of lessons, and every month we add brand new content to it that isn't available anywhere else. It goes live tomorrow on the 1st of December, but we've run a pre-sale throughout November that's 60% off, which ends today, so this is your last chance to get in with that massive discount. You also get other benefits like a direct message line to me myself and buy and sell alerts for my own personal portfolio, and there are literally only hours left to get that 60% off, so go and click the link down below in the description, and until next time, stay stoic.